So, being Christian means easier life, right? Not necessarily. So let's talk about it. Life can sometimes be a roller coaster, and we get it.
So tune into The Walk, where we'll explore the modern-day Christian journey by addressing challenging questions and trending topics faced by young adults today. No topic is off limits. Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Walk. Whoop whoop. We are back. I've got a good crew with me here today, and today we're going to be talking about the topic fight or flight. So tune in a little bit. We're going to get into the meat of it, but first I want to introduce my guest. On my left we have
Kiki.
And on my right,
Keenan.
And of course, you know me, I'm Andre. So I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I think we're gonna have a great discussion. Before we go any further, I want you guys, if you're watching, to like, subscribe, share this with every and anybody, so that it's not just you getting all these tidbits, but it's also other people. So to kick things off, let's start with our Won't He Do It segment, where we talk about what we have to thank God for. What has God done for you guys recently?
I can start.
Yeah.
So I am new to Florida.
Okay.
So I moved to Florida from New York. We're in the process of moving since October of last year. So it's been challenging, but thank God it's met a great church family. The transition with work and so forth has been something manageable. So I want to give God thanks for that.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, it's not always that you get a simple transition when it comes to moving and stuff. So that's good. That's good. In the comments, if you guys have something you want to thank God for, you can put it there as well. Okay, you guys.
Okay, I can go.
Yeah.
So this last year has been a lot of changes for me personally. So I've been asking God for a new job. And one that I can keep until school's over. And I kept saying, I'm gonna get a new job by May. And everyone was looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, how do you know? I'm like, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get a new job by May. And I kept applying for jobs for months, over 100 applications. I kept trying and I kept getting denied. I would get interviews, go to a second interview and then denied. And then magically, May 18th, I got a new job.
Amen.
Promise. And I was like, oh, look at God.
Nah.
So I was like, when you speak it into existence, God knows you're serious and he'll follow through for you. So I got a new job.
Man.
Nice.
Won't he do it?
Okay. So for me, with my job now, basically, I was going for a raise, or I was going for a promotion. I didn't get the promotion. All right. But they gave me a bonus offer, so it was $10,000.
Oh yeah.
To stay. So that came in on the next check, which was a couple weeks ago. But that was good because I also just moved. So the mixture of both those together has really been a blessing. So just thank God for everything. Just making ways. Always blessing.
Amen. We like that. We like that. So for me, it's funny if we recorded yesterday, I'd have really struggled in this segment. Let me tell you, I would have had to put on a brave face and been like, God woke me up this morning. I don't know if I wanted to, but he woke me, But today, I don't know. God done give me a boost. I felt great today. I've had a annoying week. Oh my gosh. But today somehow, I don't know. God was really good. I just woke up in a better spirit. I've had energy today. Work didn't destroy me. It's been good. So I really have to thank God for that for sure. Even from the moment I left the house, I got in my car. I'm I'm running late. Okay. Pulling out the garage. I'm dear God, please keep me safe. I make my right turn. I make my left turn. I go to make the next left turn, and there's a car. I was, oh my God, wow, just out the gates, really almost got in an accident. Like, I hate the intersection by my house because I'm like, someone is going to get in an accident and then they're gonna like put a stoplight. But I'm like, you guys need to do this now because it's bad. But yeah, God's been good. God's been good. I have to thank him because a lot of times where I'm in like kind of down spirits, it's I always feel like it's him that lifts me up. Like, I'll be in it for a while and then I'll realize like, oh, you know, I haven't really like prayed about it because it's not a specific thing. It's just like I feel down, and sometimes I forget that I can pray about that.
Right.
But last night and this morning, I prayed about it. I'm like, God, like, come on, like, help me out here. And yeah, he came through like literally right away. So definitely gotta thank God for that.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
won't
Like
he do
it.
it?
Love
Yeah.
it.
Won't he do it? Yeah.
Won't he do it?
So let's go to our next segment, Word on the Street. And guys, we have a good one today. Oh my gosh. So I'm not even gonna say nothing. I'm just gonna let, most of y'all probably have seen this, but if you haven't, Lee, our technician, is gonna play it, and then we're gonna talk about this because this is some nonsense. Lee, go ahead.
And the rockets red glare, the bombs
I think it's
bursting
like a minute.
in air, gave proof through the night
I just hear
that our
noise.
flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet
I wonder if it sounded
wave
So, you know, everybody's a different.
o'er the land of the free and the home of
This was
the
this week, right?
brave.
So, I apologize for your ears if you weren't ready for that. I certainly wasn't the first time that I heard this, but this apparently happened earlier this week. Ingrid Andress she was selected to sing the national anthem for this baseball event, and yeah, she botched it. Oh, she botched it real bad. Probably, my opinion, the worst I've ever heard.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, for a 4-time Grammy winner, I
Bro.
think she did amazing.
Well, that tells me
I think she did wonderful.
the people that are like, oh, the Grammys are rigged. Yeah, you
they
might
are.
be right.
They are.
She's a country
You might.
singer. So it's country singing, you know, Grammy, you know.
So if I gave her a guitar, it would sound better?
Well, it's a certain range, you know, country got, you know? They don't go outside the range. So, I mean, some country people could sing, but I feel like most of the time they stay right there and there.
Nah, I believe.
I don't know about that one. I don't know. Maybe you can say that of a rapper because he's not singing.
But she
Yeah.
said that she was drunk. So, number one, I'll say that it was not pretty. It was not good. It was definitely below what we have seen or the few videos that I saw because I didn't know about her. So I decided to go take a look at a couple of
Yeah.
songs, and whether it was polished or not, it wasn't up to the level of the things that she has done before. So that's number one. Number two, she came up front and said, "Hey, guess what? I was drunk and I was went into rehab and whatnot." So I'll say I'll give her that she just like was upfront and said, "Hey, this is what happened. It was horrible. It was not my best, and whatnot." And I had a conversation with my wife when we were driving, and she said, "You know what? Would people forgive her for that?" I was like,
Nah.
who cares? I mean, her hair is not gonna grow longer if anybody decides like to forgive her for that. So, I mean, people are gonna have mixed feelings and whatnot about it, but everybody gonna get on with their
I think
lives.
the country community kicked her out. 'Cause-
They
yeah, the
disowned her.
country community was like, "Nah, we disown you. Sorry." Because a lot of I was reading the comments, and a lot
I was
of them were
gonna say,
like,
the
"There's
comments
no
were
way."
funny. I saw some funny stuff.
Yeah.
They were like, because Trump, was it on Tuesday as well?
What happened
Was it
on
on
Tuesday?
Tuesday?
I
That
think-
the assassination attempt with Trump?
No, that was like Sunday
Oh, that was
or
Saturday.
Or Saturday, yeah.
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah.
So then basically in the comments they were like, well, first Trump's here is now ours.
Oh,
Oh,
I did see
Yeah,
that.
That's
that,
funny.
that made me laugh.
Wow.
And then I saw another one. It was like, this was so bad. Colin Kaepernick stood up and said, "Stop disrespecting the flag." I was like, Jesus Christ.
I texted Shane because Shane's the one that told me about this. I texted him. I was like, I don't know. Like maybe she was protesting. Like I don't know because this seems deliberate. Like
Honestly, it did. It did low key because I'm like, there's no way
I'm like, she
you
can
thought
say
that
so-
sounded great.
and it just kept getting worse. So all right, if this is me, maybe I'm drunk or I'm nervous or whatever, but I can hear.
Yeah.
And I know the song gets harder. I'm gonna, do things to make this simpler for myself. No, she attempted all the hard stuff, all the runs, all the. She tried it all, and it was all. It was all a miss. So my thing though is okay. She claimed she was drunk, right? If you're that drunk, I feel like someone should notice, right? Like someone should see, like, you're
Maybe
acting a
you
little
shouldn't go.
strange. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have like whatchamacallit, not a representative, like
Oh
Like a
yeah,
manager?
the
a manager.
manager.
The
Yeah.
manager should just step
Yeah.
in and say, "Hey, really, you shouldn't
Right.
do this." Or XYZ. So
She's not feeling
on that-
well.
Yeah, exactly.
You
She
know.
could have just like canceled it all. So
They could have got
probably-
anybody from the stands. They would have done better.
I'm not
Probably
gonna
a
lie to
cop
you.
out.
I don't think she can sing. I think that's what it is. I mean, because if you think about it, it was oh say can at can it was bad already. Like it was oh say and then can was off note.
she started.
Yeah, and I was like, oh.
She started off.
Yeah, I was like, oh say can, and it was already off there, and I was like, okay, so it's can't.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh,
So
man.
yeah, once I saw that, I was like, yeah, and then I went back and listened to some acoustic she was playing, and I realized I was like, yeah, that's why I said her range is right here, and it's still not that sharp, but it's like right there. Anything outside of it, you heard her, she was attempting that.
Oh.
See, that's what she was doing, but because she couldn't hit it, I realized cleanly. So
She.
There you go.
Well, thank God at least she admitted her mistake. She's hopefully getting the help she needs. With that, let's go into our main topic. Let's not waste any more time. So, our topic today, fight or flight, and we're going to be talking about confrontation. Now, I'll be honest. This is going to be a topic where I might need to be like learning more than speaking because anybody who knows me knows I'm very laid back seat, let things happen, observe. I watched that movie a long time ago, Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I never knew that term. But when they said that term, I was like, that's me. I just want to be like near the action, but like
in
on
the
the wall,
action,
like
just, like,
watching
watching.
it.
Whoa.
Like that's what I want to do. So yeah, this topic is going to be interesting for sure. Let me ask you guys. Well, one, how do you guys feel about confrontation first? Like, are you someone that you're like, oh, I don't have any problem with confrontation, or you're more standoffish, or is it something that you don't like but you're good at, that type of thing?
okay. So kind of like, are we a confrontational people? Like, would we
Yeah.
say we're confrontational? Huh. Okay, I guess I'll go. For me,
I mean, well, you talk, so I was like, well, he'll take it over.
Trying to get the
Okay.
question, but I would say for me, I don't believe I'm confrontational, but I think I can be confrontational, disagreeable when I need to be.
Okay.
But for the most part, I feel like I'm just like, oh, it's fine, whatever happens. But,
Yeah. So
What about you guys?
Let's see. Well, me, if we're doing like letter grades,
Yeah, I'm interested.
I think that. Do I think I'm confrontational on purpose? No. But I know that some things that I say may be perceived in a way that may come off confrontational without me intention. Like my intention is not for it to be confrontational, but it might come out that way. So because I do not communicate well, I will give myself probably like a D on confrontation.
after you say after whatever you said is said, how do you react after?
Well, usually I'm always smiling. Like even if I'm like, I just smile when I'm nervous. I don't know, but like I just smile. So I might be smiling, but then I might see the facial expression of the person, and then I kind of react off of what they say, and then I kind of get a little defensive a little bit because I'm like, that's not what I meant. But then of course, it becomes a confrontation because then now we're both trying to defend ourselves, and then I don't know how to get out of it. So then I'm like, all right, yeah. So
Gotcha. So, no. And I'll say on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being Mike Tyson and 1 being a toddler, I'm like, not really. That really, the only thing I'll probably say that I'm competitive, but not confrontational.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense. They're separate.
Yeah.
Separate, yeah. Now, I'll say this about Keenan. he did a decent job describing him, in my opinion.
Listen.
I'm glad he put that in there. That I don't remember exactly what you said, but I was like, okay.
You don't mind.
Thank God you said that.
You don't mind.
Because
All right.
Keenan, let me tell you, this is troll master over here. Troll master.
I think if you know Keenan, Troll is like his middle name.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
instigator.
It's like he can be very jokingly confrontational.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like if it's like a serious issue, he's not like necessarily like confrontational or something like that,
Okay.
Yeah. But he will if he sees you're like you say something, he's
Put it on
like,
my phone.
let's see what we can do here. Let's challenge this, shall we?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. What would you guys say is the goal of confrontation? Like, is it? Let's start with that. What is the goal of confrontation?
I don't think confrontation is a goal per se, but it's a mix of things. I will say that a person or a man or a woman, the highest function they have is being able to communicate. And when I'm communicating with a person, I'm trying to implant an idea that I have in that person's mind. If I am not clear in that process, there could be some type of friction, and that's when things happen. So that's why I like what Kiki said, because that is where things happen. Now, depending on what the temperament of each person is, you could just say, hey, you know what? If I'm the confrontational type of person and I'm trying to communicate an idea and you're not getting it and the temperature is rising, it's like, listen, it's fine. We ain't got to do this right now.
Backpedal.
Yeah, no, it's not that big of a deal. Lunch, no problem. We have anything.
Yeah.
But other people say, no. You need to understand this. And there's people that just go over the edge. It's like, listen, man, just like relax, take a chill pill or something. So, to me, that is what comes to mind in regards to communication. Has an element to do with whether a person is looking for confrontation or confrontation just arises out of a misunderstanding.
Gotcha. Okay. Would you say confrontational is necessary in our lives? Is there a way to avoid it? So like someone like me that doesn't like confrontation, is it possible that I can just avoid it? Or is it something that's necessary in life?
It's definitely possible to avoid it.
Okay.
But should you? I guess that's what the question is. I would say no. Right. I mean, they always did studies with these type of things, right? For example, if you want to raise on a job, especially if you work like a corporate, right? If you want to raise on a job, you want to be more so confrontational, honestly, or disagreeable, or anything to stand up for yourself, basically. Usually a non-confrontational person would say, oh, maybe I should, like I spoke earlier, maybe I should get a raise, or maybe I should try to go for a promotion. And I don't want to, really say anything to them. But then sometimes it's good for you to speak up on your behalf, to say, hey, look, this is the job I did. This is stuff I feel like I accomplished. This is why I feel like I deserve to get this raise. And you have to have a confrontation because usually, or really negotiation sometimes too. Negotiation is a part of confrontation that people don't like to do. So most people say, oh, I'd rather not do it. And then you can lose out on things. So it's necessary in both ways, right? I mean, you could go a life without doing things, but then sometimes you might miss out on other things in life that could be beneficial. So
I'll say that it's a skill.
It's a scale?
It's a skill.
Okay.
It's something that you can learn.
Skill.
And it depends on sometimes the environment that we grew up in. Like, I'm not picking. I'm not picking on Haitian people, but when they talk among siblings, they're like, and they're just having a regular. But they speak in a way where their body language would tell me that they're having a confrontation.
Yeah.
But to them, it's a normal, everyday, easy peasy, lemon squeezy conversation.
They're just saying, how you doing?
I had a great day! Exactly. So sometimes it's the environment that you grew up in that gives you the skill to be able to disagree with people or really not mind when you do. And anytime you're in a job, like in your scenario, then it's important because at some point in time you're gonna have to ask for something if you see that they're not giving it to you. And depending on the type of work, if you work like in something like in sales, nobody's gonna come to you. You have to like go and pursue. So it might not be even feasible for you to live a sustainable life based on what is it that you do for work.
That's true.
I mean, when it comes to talking about stuff, like I always like to get like the definition. So like, what is the definition of confrontation? Like, is it trying to defend yourself like when getting a job, or is it like a hostile type of thing? Like, is it like a step above argument? Like, what is the definition? Like, what? Because everyone can have a different definition of confrontation.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think kind of like, again, a scale, and then I guess it's tailored to the atmosphere, because you can have confrontations in all levels. You can have them small, you can have them serious, you can have them jokingly, you can have them where it's something that needs to be addressed, you can have it where it's something that like you disagree with someone, you can have it where something like, oh, I just like actually need to talk to you about this, you know, something happened and like you feel bad about it, I need to confront this person. So it's like all kinds of levels that come with confrontation. To define it, I don't know.
Like,
So
oh,
I just Google it.
Let's go. What does Google say?
So that's right. So it says hostile or argumentative meeting or situation between opposing parties. Now, I have an issue sometimes with dictionaries and definitions because a lot of times it has to do with the motive. And you don't have a motive in a definition sometimes. So to give an example, you can be a person that is persistent and you don't mind asking like toddlers do.
Right.
And we say, hey, they're just persistent. And it is something positive that they were trying to get. Now, if a person engages in the same intensity of situation to get something negative, it gets a totally different definition. But the action was exactly the same. So someone could be in a conversation with someone and their aim was to accomplish something positive. It gets a totally different meaning, but the actions were exactly the same. So sometimes it becomes something kind of tricky.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You really have to zoom out when you're talking about confrontation to get to see the whole scope, and you can kind of characterize it better.
Yeah.
All right, so a lot of times with confrontation, let's say with me, if I'm going to engage in confrontation, I want a resolution. I don't want to engage in something for no reason. And a lot of times I won't engage if I don't think there's going to be a resolution. Like if I know that I'm talking to someone that I'm like, look, they're just so headstrong, like they're not going to like listen to me, I'm not going to confront this person. Like, what's the point? I'm not wasting my breath. But what do you guys think? Do you think all conflict needs resolution, or like lack of resolution, should that be enough to stop someone from having a confrontation? Like, let's say it's something like more serious. Let's say it's not like, you know, something small. Let's say it's a situation like among friends, and like something happened that left a bad taste in your mouth, and you've thought it over and you're like, no, like I probably should address this because you feel some type of way. But you know the person you're going to confront is a bit headstrong. Like it's going to be a battle, you know? Do you think that knowing that and knowing you're probably not going to get a resolution out of it is enough motivation to avoid it altogether? Or do you think like, nah, you got to like forget about the resolution and still confront?
So I would say it's dependable, right? Every situation for every person will be different. So kind of like how you said there, in this situation, you might have a friend. If that friend maybe, let's say, is very important, or in other ways, they are important to your life, so they have multifaceted parts in your life, then it probably makes sense that you should confront them, because most likely there's going to be other issues in your life with that person that is going to make it more rigid. Or maybe, like you said, same situation as a friend that is not too much involved in your life. You're like, okay, you know what? If I don't really involve her, or like at least do this confrontation, I will manage to be fine, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's separation. I don't think there's always, personally, I guess, that's probably a good question. Like, is it always necessary to have a confrontation? Maybe not. I think, which could be another question, like in terms of like how should you have a confrontation? I would say, I think in terms of even deciding if you want a conversation is also deciding inside yourself first. Sometimes I think why, kind of like Ron's saying, conversations can go, well, usually it sounds like it's a negative thing, but why it could go really astray, especially if you're trying to have a positive conversation, is that I don't think sometimes people fully grasp or think about what they're really confronting about. Most times it's emotional, most times it's emotionally, let's just say emotionally charged. So you're going out there, you might have anger, you didn't really think of all your actual feelings. And then even if you try to make it sound nice, it doesn't come across nice because somebody's like, whoa, you know? But sometimes I would say, yeah, if you could actually think about your feelings in this way, like we're talking about in the situation, you know what, hey, this is my friend, I'm gonna need this person, or at least in general, this is someone that's in multiple parts of my life. Why is it that I'm upset? Let me figure that out. Okay, now I know why. So now if I approach this person, I have like more details in behind, and I can kind of go off based off of that, and maybe it won't turn into something that's, you know, tragic, I would say. So.
Gotcha. What about you guys? What do you think? You guys agree?
No, I definitely agree with that.
Okay.
That's like, so what Keenan is describing is kind of like what we all should do is like knowing ourselves. Like if we know ourselves, then we can understand like why we're upset about something. The confrontation, well, it'll be a conversation at that point. It might not even be a confrontation because you can have that normal, you can have a conversation without it being like emotionally charged, like he was saying. So like if we're going based off the definition where it says like two parties are on opposing sides, if you're both coming to the conversation knowing, I guess, what your actual feeling is, it may not increase to a confrontation, because then you can probably both find a resolution a lot easier if you're not as emotionally charged versus being emotionally charged. Does that make sense?
I absolutely follow. Absolutely follow.
So,
You agree?
Yeah, I agree for the most part. Absolutely.
All right. So it's funny you say that, Kenny, because that's basically how I operate when it comes to like confrontation. I avoid it at all costs until like I see like, oh, this is a person that like I can't avoid this with because like, all right, you're a part of my life. Like there's a lot of things when it comes to like friendships. I'm like, oh, I don't really see you often, or this isn't really going to affect much. Well, why am I going to have this? Like, because it's not a fun conversation. I'm like, it can just, you know, or like there's things where I will simply, what's the word I'm looking for? Reorganize you as a friend. Like, I will adjust you. Like, oh, so this is showing me this. You're now going to go here. You know, like
Changing the hierarchy of friendship.
not necessarily the hierarchy, but okay, kind of the hierarchy in terms that like, based on
Or hierarchy of
where,
importance, or a hierarchy of relationship. I would
yeah,
say.
exactly. So I'm gonna like relationally where we are. I'm like, no, we're not where I thought. I because you're not here as a friend, like we're not like this tight or whatever. I'm not gonna give you as much energy. I'm not going to, you know, like go out of my way necessarily for you. You know, like okay, that should be more reserved for someone that's actually a more closer friend. But you show me you're more here. You know, so I would just simply pivot and keep it pushing.
Gotcha.
And I feel like, you know, still cordial with people and everything. Like, I don't think anybody that I've done this to has ever noticed. So that's the other thing too. Like people be like, well, then you're just like moving people around in your life and they don't even know it. They don't get to defend themselves. So I'm like, well, if they notice, we can have a conversation. But if they don't notice, then clearly it wasn't that big of a difference. That's how I think. What do you guys think?
Honestly, I've lived my whole life like this. That's like when Andre brought up like being a part of the walk, and I was like, you want me to talk about confrontation? Because I am the worst at it. Like I'm working on, like I've been praying about it, but I'm terrible at that. So I'm like, I don't know if I can really give much input. But that's literally how I've operated my whole entire life with everything. Like if I feel like I say something to someone that I don't like, and maybe they don't understand it, that I'm not liking it or something, or we just have one conversation and then it didn't go well, I'm like, all right, so we're just not gonna talk as much. But not like saying we're not friends. I'm just not gonna.
Yeah, just gonna
Yeah,
we used to talk all the time.
Yeah, like
quite
that's
all the time.
Yeah, that's how I've operated.
Okay, how about this? And it might be like a different question. So, because I noticed we're like talking about it as friends, right? Or in terms of like determining your friendship. So, how about this? You have a good friend, like all of us. We have a good friend, right? So let's use confrontation this way. We notice our friend is probably doing something that could be like detrimental to life.
Okay.
And we're like, you know how you get to those positions, we go like, okay, should I say something to that person? Most likely, like Ron said, is that when you are talking to somebody, or at least for conversational purposes, generally speaking, you're trying to impose something that they obviously disagree with, because or else they'd have been doing it.
Right.
Or whatever the situation had been. So is that necessary? Because no, we like to still, like, generally speaking, people like to avoid that anyways, right? So it's a good friend, I know, okay, they probably shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. And you're like, okay, I should probably talk to that person. And then you go, I don't know if I want to talk to that person.
Because if I bring it up, it might be
it's going to be
that's
a
gonna cause
problem.
friction. We have no
That's
friction
X,
right
Y,
now.
and
And
Z.
Yeah, it's like
I'm
there's
not
no
sure if
issues
we're
right
close
now.
enough to have that
Right.
conversation or not.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
gotcha.
That is a very good question.
So, yeah, what would you guys say about that?
So,
I'm not going.
so for that one, that comes down to what I guess, like, whether you care about the friendship enough.
Oh, Lord.
Because and the reason why I say that is because, say if it's our significant other, right? We will let our significant other know, like, hey, you know, I don't know, like, you know, you're trying to help them because you love them so much, and like you invested so much in that relationship. But then when it comes to friends, people are quicker to cut off their friends because it's not. They don't. I guess they don't put it in the same category, or like it's too much effort. Which I hate to say is true, but I've seen it happen.
No,
I've done it. So I'm like, I guess it just really depends on if you really do care about the friendship that enough. Because if you really love someone, you will let them know the truth, whether or not they
We'll like it.
exactly, because you care. I mean, obviously, how you tell them matters.
Very important. Yep.
But if you truly, truly love someone, you will let them know the truth.
Yeah. Would you say that, for you personally, that you are in this way confrontational for your friends in this way, like you're pretty good at it, or are you someone that tends to try to avoid it?
So if it's like my ride or die, well, I'm gonna tell you. Now I'm gonna say I'm gonna try every way possible to be like to figure out, because I've actually, this has happened to me one time before, where like I knew someone was going to react badly to something that I said, and I knew it in my heart, and I'm like, I did not want to say it, and it happened, and we are not as close anymore. But like at the same time, I'm like, it was out of love and it was the truth. So what happens after that, I cannot control. But the fact that I did it out of love, like I know it wasn't a malicious intent for what it was. So do I feel bad about it that we're not as close? Yeah. But at the end of the day, God knows my heart.
So yeah, I'll be very honest. This is something that I used to be very bad. Very bad. I will see it and I'll be like, whoa.
Mind my business.
Because I have the ability to really like think many steps ahead. So I'm always like, my brain is always going. Like I'm thinking like, okay, this, then this, and this, and this. So like even in that situation, I'll see it, be like, oh, someone should say something. And then I'll be like, oh, but then they're gonna say this, then they react like this, and this.
Yeah.
And I go the other way.
Yeah.
Now, it's pretty bad. I think even people have pointed that out about me too. So I'm like, oh, they know that I'm not gonna say nothing. But I've tried to do a little bit better as I've gotten older, and it sucks. I hate it so much. Now, it started with, first I'm like, okay, let me just say something. But that's all you're getting. Like, I'm not gonna go back and forth. Like, I'm gonna be like, hey man, like, that's what I noticed. I don't know if, and then once they give the pushback, I'm done. Like, that's it. I said my piece.
You're
Cool.
like, I tried. That's
Great.
it.
All right, man.
You got it.
You got it. Yeah. Done. Then I don't know what it was, but I don't know. Maybe I was doing some reflecting. And I'm like, okay, maybe if I was in their position, I would want a little bit more, you know. So, but even now, that's kind of where I am exactly now. I'll give a little bit more, but it kind of depends on the person and like if I feel like I have it in me to do this back and forth. Because one thing I hate is having this ability to foresee things, and then people always like to tell me, you don't know that for certain. I don't know, man. Like, I know certain things I feel like I know for certain. So like I hate to like see it coming, then be like, oh, okay, I'm just still gonna do it, and then it happens exactly how and that just drives me crazy. So
my question is, there's two things. Number one, there is something called graduate exposure. Very, very, very cool in psychology, where if you want to engage into something that you think is difficult, you just do little bits of it, and over time you'll be able to do it. But the issue is that sometimes we just like jump in head first, cold turkey, and they're like, ah! And then you're like,
never again.
And then you're back at step one. So that's cool that you do graduate exposure without probably knowing. Number two is that there is something called a self-fulfilling prophecy, wherein we want to do something in a particular way, want a particular outcome, but because we have told ourselves that this is what's going to happen, without knowing, we say things in a particular way that is going to be inevitable for that to happen.
You think?
I'm dead serious.
I don't know,
I'm
man.
dead serious. So there is self-fulfilling prophecies, and that affects you. So the question is, what is the outcome that I want, and what skills do I need to learn to be able to get this particular outcome whenever I'm communicating with someone? And if I engage into that over time, I will get better. However, if I don't have a set outcome and I do not have the set tools, or I don't engage into gaining that skill, might as well just throw in the towel.
That's true. I don't know, man. I feel like if I try, I'm not looking for the outcome that I know is going to happen. Like, and it's funny, like I'm thinking of Tashina in this moment, because like there's so many times this has happened with her, and she hates that I do this, but I'm like I know that we're gonna end up here, but like, and I'll even tell you what other people were. I'm like, did you see? Like, I didn't want to do it, but I did, and it ended up where? Right here. Yeah. If I decide that I'm gonna do it, then I'm gonna do it properly. Like, I'm like, I take a breath. And we're gonna do this for real. Like, I try my absolute best, and I think that's why it annoys me so much, because I put so much in, and it still got back to where I thought it was. So I'm like, dang, like, why did I put so much in? Because it takes something out of you to like dig deep like that, you know? Because again, it's not fun. It's very contrary to my nature, all that stuff. So I don't know, but I'm working on it. I'm still trying. Never mind. I can't say that.
Even what?
I can't say that. Never mind. But yeah.
My wife is like that. My wife get me into like corners like that, and so my wife she probably could have, she likes law and debating and arguments.
Okay.
So she
And
doesn't
arguments.
like a lawyer like argues for a living. That is what I mean. Like, she would just like argue with people for a living and get paid well. Yeah. So anytime you put into a room someone that is like that, and a person that is like in 0 degrees in the same type of department.
Yeah.
So I engage into the same thing, like,
Fade into the background.
Exactly, but sometimes, just like Kiki said, it's necessary to have the conversations. And when it's your spouse, how do you force yourself to have the conversations that is going to help them, especially when you are not the one that usually initiates the whole thing. So it's something that you definitely like gotta learn.
Let me
in
tell
general.
you. In relationships, it is important. I have learned that. I have learned that. Still working on it. Doing a lot better than I used to. But yeah, no, it's not easy. And one thing, I think both of you mentioned that earlier, like emotionally charged. So like if it's not something that you're confronting about someone, it's something that like happened in a situation. It really is good to gather your thoughts. Like one thing I've learned, I think I was listening to a podcast, and the person was talking about when we get triggered, and like what's happening on like a physiological level. They're like, okay, you get triggered by something, and it's because of something deeper, something that happened in your past, whatever. Your brain goes into fight or flight mode, right? So, and they're like, your brain literally reverts back to being a child. So like it reverts back to how your mind was whenever this trauma occurred to you, whatever it was. And most times all of our traumas happen in our childhood. So we revert back to like that brain. It's a very illogical brain, very emotional brain. And so then we act in irrational and emotional manners that we wouldn't normally if we were using our adult brain. But they're like, until you are not triggered, or until you address the trigger, that's how you react. So when you are triggered, the first thing to do is to, one, notice that, and then like, okay, I'm not going to engage in a confrontation right now because it's not gonna go well. Like, it's just not. Step back and try to do some self-reflection to figure out like what's the actual root of this, because it might not be what's right in front of you. It might be something more, something deeper. And once you have that information, by that time you've probably calmed down from your trigger. You know, if you were triggered to like about an 8 out of 10, you might now be down at like 4 or 3. Now you're at a point where you can actually have a conversation with a logical mind, you know, one that's not like reacting emotionally and irrationally to things. But it's literally like physiological. It's not possible for you to act outside of that in that moment. And when I learned that, it made me feel a little bit better, because I was like, okay, I don't have too much control at that point. Like, it makes sense why, like, when you're really triggered or really bothered by something, like, everything that's happening just seems so intense. You know, it seems like however you react in that moment, it's like, nah, the only thing I could do was kick, scream, and yell. The only thing, you know, like, it really at that moment seems like that way because of that. Yeah.
Let me see. So I got something else. So basically, in terms of confrontation, if we take it to like a Christian perspective, right?
All right.
So I would say in my lifetime, I think that, I don't know if it's good or bad, I just feel like we've got very lax with things, right? So how I remember from, let's say, the church, I would say the people in the church were generally very confrontational people, right?
Yes.
Like, it didn't matter, like, you know, young people would always say, and I feel like that's the thing with young people now, we like really went like 100% the opposite way. So like back in the day, like you said, you come to church, you got some like, you know, clothes on that somebody didn't like, that is not what you're supposed to wear in the house of God, right? Like, so it was really like that. One thing I'll say though is, like, as Christians in general, not even in that sense, maybe that negative, or maybe it is, we also have like our grandma, right? I would say she's someone that might be very confrontational in terms of Christianity. So for example, for you to basically try to share the word with somebody that does not believe what you believe, that's confrontation, because they live their own life. And if you had to come and, well, how my grandma would say is writing letters and saying you're basically living in sin, like you need to come to God.
She would say that word for word.
Yeah, right.
Like word for word.
So random people on the street that's walking past, you know, she's like, you're living in sin, you need to come to God. And that's something that we would see sometimes in the Bible as well. But I know for us, we do not take that, especially I would say younger generation does not take that path at all.
No.
We're like, hey, we're cool, man. You do what you want. No issues over here.
Yeah.
You know? So in general, let's go back with the question. So for Christians, is it necessary to be confrontational in that way, in terms of spreading the gospel, in terms of being strong, being proud, sharing your faith, you know, and, you know, basically confronting people that's not Christians?
Got you.
I was looking at a video this week.
Yeah.
As I was like thinking about the show, and to me there is like a spectrum of things. I don't think in black and white and absolutes. I just do not like absolutes. Because there is a whole bunch of errors whenever you just use absolutes, in my mind.
Yeah.
Now, there was this video of this guy of going to, should people, you know, spread the gospel and preach and whatnot? Yes, fantastic. My great grandfather, as a matter of fact, he used to write down Bible verses, like 4 in a paper, and each time he met someone, he would give it to them and tell them to read. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm telling you, he was like 90, 80 something years old, all the way till he passed away close to like 100. And he will always do that.
Yeah.
Other people decide that they want to go and talk to people and whatever. But this guy decided that he was going to go to a gay parade and just tell them, Jesus love you. Going back to...
Okay, that's better.
Yeah, but...
I was scared for a second.
No. He started there, but then, yes, but you live in sin and whatever. And I'm not saying that he was saying something wrong. But... if he got a message from God that says, hey, man, this is what I want you to do, kudos to you.
Yeah.
But to me, what was the aim of that? And would the people that were there be receptive to hearing that in the way that he was doing it?
Yeah.
So the method has to do a lot with the aim that you want to accomplish, and also sometimes the settings. But at the same time, if you just put God into the mix, there is no saying that no one that ever does that never gets a result. Or that the people that heard that particular day, 10 years later, they say, you know what, there was this guy, and blah, 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 blah. There is no control. But it's just one of those things that to me, it would not be something that I would have the temperament to approach in that particular way.
Yeah. I would say this. So, like, that kind of reminds me, even an example of Jonah.
Wow, I was gonna say that. Wow.
Because I'm like, so when you say, for example, it was a gay pride parade, and then basically he's going there to confront, it'd be similar to something like Jonah, who's going to tell people basically living in sin and God's gonna destroy you.
Right.
And it's like, he's like, I don't want to do that. He's like, look. And God, like you said, God's like, hey, you know, this is obviously your job, and for us, most people are gonna want to avoid that, and that's why I guess the question for me still is kind of like, is it you're saying that you need a message from God to go be confrontational, or is that something that we should have?
If he received a message from God and say, do it that way, that man said, man, guy on top said, do it this way.
Gotta do it.
But everybody can engage in some type of, not confrontation, but sharing the gospel. And I believe they have a higher probability, not higher probability, a higher higher probability of being consistent with doing something like that if it's something that they can engage into it consistently. So not everybody is going to have a gay parade happening next to them and they're
search
the
up
temperament
Keith's gay
to
parade,
just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
But you can, whenever you have someone, a coworker, they're not feeling well, hey, is everything good? And really care for the person. And, you know, invite them one day to, I don't know, a concert or something that's happening at church, or maybe, you know, one of the social events that we have, and it could be just a graduated exposure to something.
Yeah.
And I believe that a lot of times as Christians, we believe that, okay, so this is the Bible, I mean, it's evangelism time, so we gotta like, no, but it's just how over time, to me, it's proven that it's not a good method of helping people get to know God,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
You had something to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say this. So I feel like, and again, you know, I understand that. I was saying, I feel like if you look inside the Bible, I was trying to think. I feel like there's more examples in the Bible of confrontation that God sends you on, like Moses, go confront Pharaoh, and you know, just all, you know, anything you could think of. But I'm like, I feel like there's more things of confrontation like that than confrontation that because that's how I am as myself, right? I'm just like, hey, I'll invite you to church.
Right.
You know, if you want to come, you can come. I'm not telling you nothing. But I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I feel like sometimes, and this is what I see with like us in general, right? Especially as Christians now, I feel like we like to be very comfortable, right? Which is like, you know, I don't want to cause a problem. I don't want to cause an issue. But then it's like, so we don't do none of it, which a lot of times maybe, okay, and let's put it this way, maybe past generations was really on the other side of maybe causing too much issues. Yeah. But it's like, we're not stirring no pots.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, all our pots and ovens are off. So it's like, I feel like, you know, we should be in at least a middle ground of like, you know, we should stir some stuff up and still say what we're supposed to say and not be scared that how people are going to judge us and look.
Right.
You know.
So I think this, right? In the Bible, most of the times when you find bold confrontations, like Jonah, Moses, is literally a God thing. God like, hey, bro, I need you to do this. And then he's usually one calling someone that is unqualified to do that, or he's calling someone that doesn't want to do that. And then, you know, they have to overcome that. They do it. Okay, cool. But I think God, there is a command for us to confront and to share. But I think if it's going to be something that's like bold like that, it needs to be a call, not just like, oh, you know, we gotta do certain things. I think are for a specific time or person. Like, it needs to be like a push. Now, if you've been feeling that in you, then that could be the call. You know, that feeling that you have, like, no, this needs to get done. That could be God, you know, working in you. I think that's how a lot of like purpose is started. It's by this feeling that you get, like, you know, this like this really bothers me. Like, you guys remember that Myron sermon where he was talking about purpose, and he was using the example of Nehemiah. He was like, the walls of Israel were destroyed for many, many years, right? They had gone back there. There was like somewhere in Babylon, somewhere back there. No one thought it was a problem. But then someone comes to Nehemiah and he's like, oh, hey, how have you been? And he's like, oh, yeah, I was just in Jerusalem and the walls are down. And Nehemiah like breaks down. He's like distraught for days on end. And so Myron's point was that everybody else knew about this and they weren't distraught. They weren't broke. But Nehemiah heard this and like it broke him. Like, the king was like, dude, what's wrong with you? He's like, man, the walls, like, they haven't been rebuilt. So, like, for him, that was clearly his purpose because that's what stirred him on the inside. Like, that really, like, it was something that bothered him. And you can see that through like how he was able, the guy like worked through him to rebuild those walls. So if it's not something like that, I don't think you should necessarily go and stir the pot and stuff like that. You can do more of the natural things in your life, you know, tell people about God and about his love, you know, try to be a good example. The things that you may see, like, you know, say a little tidbit here, a little tidbit there, but I don't think you should necessarily go and start confronting people without some purpose behind it, without some of God like pushing you to do that.
I remember, so based off what you said, so there was a person at the church, and you probably remember this, because I'm not, maybe you do as well, I don't know. So, based off what you said, she came up there one time during service because she had a purpose, and she felt it in her heart.
Yeah.
And she was basically saying, what's going on here in this church is not of God, right? And she starts saying her stuff, you know, like, God's spirit is not in this chair, God told me to come up here. So, I don't know how that went. I don't know.
I do not remember this. I was not here.
Oh, really?
I was not here.
Yeah, so that did happen. Were you here for that?
No.
Okay, well, so that happened. So, my question would be like some things you're saying. I'm like, and I guess another way of putting that. So, what I was gonna say, and it'll tie in there. So, like for example, remember when we had all those? I guess they were Pharisees. I don't know. But anyways, the men that brought the lady to Jesus said, "Oh, this is adultery."
Yeah.
And then kind of how Jesus looked at us, kind of like, all right. But in that way, that's a confrontation. Like, oh, we're going to go do this thing, this righteous thing. And, you know, this is the law of Moses, and she has to be stoned. And we got to figure it out. Obviously, how you can just be like, oh, we're just going to let that go. But their thought process was, we're going to do what's quote unquote right.
Yeah.
So I guess in all that being stated, it's like, how do you determine what's right? Some people have their own different moral compasses. Like some people feel like the stuff you feel like, what I'm doing is the right thing to do, and so I'm gonna do this, and it might not be the right thing to do. So how do we know what's the right thing to do?
You can't, because like you can't actually say like you're right and I'm wrong. Like who can truly say that? It's all opinion, really. It's all like what you feel is right and what you feel is wrong. So at the end of the day, no one can, like, at the end of the day, you can only follow your feelings or like your heart, and I can only follow mine. Now I would advise that you truly try to look inward and truly try to like connect with God to like, you know, I think that's hard to say though. That's hard to say. No, go ahead.
So I think that also stems from like kind of like where it's coming from. But when I say that, I mean like as in God. So like if we're having like, and I struggle with this, so that's probably why I have issues with confrontation. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Because as Christians, we are supposed to be confrontational. Like, so I was like doing like devotions because of my issues with confrontation. And so I was just reading about different like prophets, like different people, like Paul, for example, confrontational.
Very.
Okay, so like right there, he is a big example of that. And
again, he was called.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Like you were saying, Andre, like the big things that stirred the pot, quote unquote, I think those are led by God. Now, of course, when you do something led by God, I don't think it'll have the type of effect that will be negative, if that makes sense. It could, but the outcome will always be for God.
In the end.
In the end.
I guess that's good. Yeah.
So I guess that's how you would determine like whether or not the feeling that you had was truly something that God was inclined, like you were inclined by God to do, or if it was something that you think God told you to do because you felt like it was a righteous thing to occur. Which is why like we should always consistently be in constant prayer when it comes to just even talking to people regularly, because you don't know what you could say that may cause that confrontation or whatever. So if you're always in prayer and like asking God to help you with things that you say, then then that may kind of deter a lot of the issues.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of the things that we said has to do a lot with the actor, so to speak, or the person saying whatever. Like in the example that you gave with the lady that said, "Hey, well, you know, you guys do whatever church and it's not right or whatever." I heard this from a mentor. He says, "Error doesn't have to. You can have a conversation with a person that, from whatever school of thought or from whatever it is that they think, because number one, there is a chance that there is a 50% chance that I'm going to be wrong, and not a 50% that I could be right, because we always over time are changing, are growing in the way in which we see things. So if we're not willing to examine the things that we believe that we know, to make sure that we are correct, and if we are wrong, to correct them, then you're just going in the wrong way altogether. So if someone stands up and they have the conviction to say X, Y, and Z, I have the responsibility of challenging myself and say, is that true? Let me examine what is it that I'm doing. And if there were things that I needed to change, then good thing that she said X, Y, and Z, because I was totally oblivious that I was doing it. Now, if I just go and condemn the lady for saying that I never examined what I was doing, then it was my fault. And if I continue looking into my feelings, oh my God, you shouldn't have said it, and did not examine what is the purpose of what she said, then it was for naught. So it doesn't matter how thin you slice it, it will always have two sides. So I would say that in regards to, not only what the person says, but how it's received, and what is the process that you take whenever you hear something to determine whether it is true or it is false, and have no reservations into having a conversation with someone that has a different belief, regardless of what is it that they said, because they could be right, but they could be wrong. And if they are wrong, if they are right, I have a chance now to change and improve how is it that I operated.
And they could be right and doing it all wrong.
That too.
But a lot of people write off everything because they did it all wrong. And it takes a high level of maturity to like cut through the noise sometimes of how people do things, and like do that examination, like, all right, let's see if there's any truth to what they're saying. Cut out the came at me real rude, but all right, let's cut that out. That takes a high level of maturity.
Yeah.
Now, another thing you can do in trying to assess, like what you were asking, like, okay, how do you know what's someone's convicted to do and what is just their self? Line it up with like WWJD. If you can see Jesus kind of doing that, or like you see examples of him doing that, okay, that's one determiner. You could also obviously line it up with the Bible, right? So now I don't know what happened in that situation, and I don't know what she did prior as well, right? So two things that come to mind is actually one verse I was going to share. Galatians 6:1. So it says, "Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back to the right path." So I'm like, okay, when I hear about this, I'm like, that doesn't sound gentle and humble. I don't know. But again, I don't know what happened before. Maybe she was gentle and humble and she wasn't hurt. So then she went to the more extreme measure. I don't know. And then the other thing that came was the example of confrontation that probably most people think of, Jesus, when he's like, if you have fault with someone, go speak with that person. If they don't listen, bring back two people. You guys talk about it. If they still don't listen, bring it in front of a larger body. If they still don't listen, okay, just put them to the side, Yeah. So I'm like, maybe she already did those steps. And now this was we got to bring it in front of everybody type of thing.
Would you actually do that though?
No. wait, do what?
No, I'm
do what she did?
No, I'm
The
talking
break, try like
yeah,
three
the
times.
process. I'm gonna talk to
The
you,
process.
and then if not, I'm gonna bring back two more people to talk to you.
And that's what I was gonna ask. like we know these things, but how many times do we actually try to implement
No,
them
but would
in
you
our
even?
life?
I'm saying I'm not gonna lie to you. I wouldn't use that. I feel like now I would just gang up on you. If I bring two more people, it's like, look, I tried to talk to you the first time. I got two more people here now, so we're gonna talk to you and give you this intervention. I don't feel like I would do that. That's what I was talking about. But
I'll do the one. You're right. I'll do the one.
I'll talk to you one.
Yeah.
And then once you say whatever you say, I'm like, all right, cool. But I'm like,
it depends on the level, right? So, and I can't say that I have ever done this or even been a part of this, but I know it's something that happens. So like, for example, interventions, right? And I'm trying to think what would it take in my life for me to be like, all right, let's have an intervention for Keenan. I don't want to do this, but like it needs to be done. I don't know, but maybe there would be something that I'm like, Keenan's like really like going off the deep end, and it's like, okay, I can't. If something were to happen, like I would actually feel really bad. I can't like allow this anymore. And I tried, and it didn't work, and I was just gonna leave it alone, but nah. And most times, if it's something like that, it won't be something that just I see. Like your other close friends would see it as well. So,
it's usually life and death. Usually, that's when like people usually have that feeling. Like you saw me, maybe I started drinking. You're like, okay, it's fine. I'm drinking more. All of a sudden, you saw me passed out on the road one time.
Right? Yeah, something like that.
Then everybody's like, okay, time out.
We gotta talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and then it's usually like a life and death. We're like, okay, you know what? Like, if he keeps doing this, he's gonna kill himself.
Yeah.
So I think
something bad's gonna happen. Yeah. So then that's probably what it would take. Where I'm like, all right, because we all know about this. Let's do something about it instead of just talking about it.
So I guess it's easier to bring a group then. That would be I tried one time and
Yeah.
then now
Brought it back.
but then it gets to the point of life and death, and it's just like, do we want it to get that far for us to do that, or?
But also, and that's just how my brain. I'm like, well, would he listen earlier? I'm like, we could do it earlier, but he's having fun earlier. It wasn't out of control yet. He's probably only gonna listen when it gets out of control.
Yeah.
So, when you read that, to me it said, use a different method.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So-
what you're saying.
I spoke to the person, and they didn't hear. I'm gonna use a third person to do it. How many times your parents have told you something, and you hear the same thing, when you have told someone something, and someone else come and tell them the same thing? It's like, dude, I told you the same thing. What the heck is wrong with you? But that is just human nature. So maybe we just and that takes, just like you said, a certain level of maturity.
Yeah.
And if something is not working, and I took that approach with family, and I decided, hey, I want to tell them X, Y, and Z, but anytime I do, they really don't respond. So whatever I'm doing is not working. And the previous generation, they were good at like, I'm going to tell you this, and you're annoyed, and they're going to keep on.
Every chance they get.
But the thing is that if you're telling someone something, and you're telling them over and over and over, and they continue to do it, it's like me slapping you. You're not doing something, and I come back and I'm going to slap you. If you don't try to dodge them, you didn't learn that the slap hurts. So the person really is not learning, they're not understanding what you're saying, so you just need to change the approach. You just continue slapping the person for the next 20 years. That doesn't work. So to me, just change the approach. Maybe have a third party. Have them go to a psychologist. Maybe they need to go to a group or whatever. Send them to a convention. One of those things is going to work. But if we just keep on doing the same exact thing, oh no, I'll keep talking to him, I'm Jamaican, me telling that, but 3 times, it doesn't work. So it's just, and that is human nature. So the question is, are we doing things and understanding human nature, or are we just into ourselves? Too bad to understand that we need to change the approach.
And you said that too, like, I don't know if you've heard that before, but they were saying that sometimes it's actually harder for someone that's close to you to listen to you, because I don't know what the reason why. Sometimes they say it hurts more, things of that nature, rather than listen to somebody that's really just far away from the situation or not that close to them. So like you said, like father or parents to children, family members, best friends, it's hard to like hear it. But then someone else comes in and they're like, oh, yeah.
Because familiarity brings about contempt. So if we are friends and being friends forever here at church, I have a certain level of familiarity with you. And if you tell me something, I might just brush it off. So I think it's the proximity that we have the people that brings about that disregard. So, and that is just human nature.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I have another thing. So going back into the Christian thing, right? So let's say Seventh-day Adventists, and it's not just Seventh-day Adventists, right? I've heard this from many religions. But the concept is we have the truth, right?
Okay.
So if the concept is we have the truth, and then you have to share your truth, or share the truth, share the gospel, which is your truth, kind of going back to the whole confrontation thing. And I guess that's probably one question for us too, because that'd be important for us to distinct. Do we believe that the religion you're in has the truth? That'd be one thing. But then obviously after that, then like, because you have the truth, you're going to always be if you are trying to share it, you can always make confrontation because
Yeah.
technically speaking, you're like, this is the truth,
And
I need to
you
share it. I
but
have
not
to share it.
Right.
So with Sunday Adventists, right, we do have very differences. Like we have a lot of differences than most people, right? So going back to the whole thing, wouldn't that make us have to be confrontational if
Well-
that's what we're trying to do?
There is small things sometimes that come into our language that we start using that in my mind are grounds for confrontation. So for instance, when people say your Sabbath, then I'm like, oh dude, your truth, like you said. I'm like, there is a truth or the truth, and there is no two. So when we put like stakes in the sand like that in regards to how is it that we think and how is it that we communicate, then yes, it's gonna cause some type of confrontation, but that just comes with the territory. So again, if a person is, I have a whole bunch of people that are not Adventist, and at the same time, I'm like, listen, man, do you want to believe in whatever you believe? That is cool. However, they understand that there is things that I believe into, and we just don't we don't have clashes. How to start the pot in those situations? I don't know. I have avoided that for a long time. I wouldn't know how to tell you how to start the pot.
So the thing is, I don't think we need to. And that is something I feel, this personal opinion, but I feel pretty strongly that we don't need to stir the pot. We were not called to stir the pot necessarily. That, I say what I said before, to stir the pot, you need a specific call, an individual call that God says, I need you to go stir that pot, right? Now, and if you think of, again, like what's the call that all of us Seventh-day Adventists were given, right? Matthew 28, go into the world, preach and teach, right? And you can see even the specifics of what Jesus wants them to do, because he told his disciples that before he gave that command to everyone, he gave it to his disciples when he told them, hey, go into the area, I'm giving you the ability to cast out demons, heal people, blah, blah, blah. He tells them to go and do that, and he doesn't tell them to confront or stir the pot. He says, say your piece, and if they don't want to hear it, dust the stand off your feet and move somewhere else. You don't keep going, you know? I think that's really the call. He's like, you just say it. It's okay. If they don't want to hear it, cool. Don't worry. I'll take it from there, you know? Now the seed is planted, I'm going to do the rest, you know, or I'll send someone else to say something else. But that confrontation, that going back and forth, I think that distracts from what you were trying to say, right? If I'm like, oh, Jesus loves you. And you're like, no, he doesn't. I'm like, no, Jesus. I'm like, oh, at this point, the message is gone from Jesus loves you. We're no longer talking about that. Now we're just arguing, you know?
Yeah.
But if you just kind of leave it at that, then it's just like this itch that I feel like stays somewhere in the back of someone's brain. And now the Holy Spirit can come and do his job and fester and have that to grow, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes if you do that back and forth, then when they leave, they're more focused on man, that was so annoying having to go back and forth.
Right.
Or they're more frustrated than thinking about what you were saying. So I really feel like generally you should share for sure with everybody the truth. Tell everybody, but you don't need to have a back and forth. You don't need to argue. You don't need to stir the pot necessarily. Just kind of say your piece and leave it at that. Now there are conversations that you can have without stirring the pot, but it's a disagreement conversation, but you can have that. But you got to have that level-headedly, right? So I've done that at work and at school when, people are questioning things, right? You may say something and then they're like, oh, I didn't know that, or, this is what I believe. And I'm like, well, and we'll have a conversation. But there's a difference between conversation and people that they want to actually stir the pot. They're instead of having a conversation, oh, okay, so they'll say something back to me and I'll bring up another point to them and we'll have points, we're just going off points. I'm like, oh, do you know the Bible says this? Or, what do you think about this? Or, what's your interpretation of this? And we can, but then there's the people that they say, your interpretation is wrong. This is what it means. I'm like, those are two different things. That's my point. That's what I think.
So, have you know how they say this, right? And be if your light is shining, basically, then people that surround you should receive that light.
Yeah.
That's a Mandela.
Yeah. So, for example, right? So like I know what you said, and I was like, you know what I thought about was I remember when Tashina first came, and she's
All right, go ahead.
she was just like, wow, like I didn't know you guys do none of these things. She's like, Audrey, I've been with you for like 15, 20 years, like whatever she said. She's like, I didn't even know you did this. And then you and Crystal. But that's what I was thinking. I'm just like, well, just how you said it, because I'm just like, I feel like sometimes we're like more hesitant to say things.
Yeah.
And like, we're just like, you could put ourselves to make ourselves comfortable to be like, I don't need to say anything. And if you, like you said, you ask something, it's kind of like, I'll tell it to you, but you're not really sharing, you know what I'm saying? So I know it's like, you don't have to be confrontational, but it's like, I really feel like most of us are just like really comfortable of like
avoiding
anything,
that's
basically. True. And that's what I guess that's what I'm saying. But
that's true.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll be really open and honest with you on this, and especially with the Tashina one, right? When I was younger, you know, when you're still like in school, you're dealing with like friends, you don't want to be seen as different. 100% that was the motive. 100%. Like they would say something, and I'm like, just not gonna say anything. I don't have to agree with you, but I don't have to disagree with you either. I'm just gonna stay silent, you know? And that way I can slide by and not be the odd person out, not be the like, what did he say? He does what? He doesn't believe what? You know, I don't have to do any of that. I could just skate by and still fit in, you know? But as you get older, you don't have to care as much about fitting in. Like at work, I don't need to fit in at work. I don't need to fit in at work, you know? Or even like in the friendships, you kind of already have your friends. So if you meet someone else, you're like, oh, I don't need you to like me, you know? Like I can actually say what I want to say, even if it's different from you. I don't have to feel strange about it. But when I was younger and in a school setting, I felt very self-conscious about that. Like, oh, how are they going to like think about this different thing that they've probably never heard before? Like Sabbath? Like what? What is that? You don't do stuff on Saturday? What? You know, like, oh, man, I hated that conversation. I hated it so much.
I used to say it. I used to respond to that.
I would try to avoid giving the exact, oh, you want to do this on Friday? I can't. I just, you know, I would be busy a lot. I would... No, I'm with my family on Saturday. Or
how about next Saturday?
Yeah, that's literally what happens. Yeah. Literally, right after you say that.
If that happens, then I'm like, all right, I'll try to explain it in like one shower. They won't have something to say afterwards. Like, yeah, so I go to church on Saturday. Yeah, I know it's kind of different, right? But yeah, that's what I believe. Yeah.
Like, you know what? I feel like because of us being so shy, that's why people think that SDA is like a cult sometimes, because they're just like,
because
we're not explaining it, we're not trying to be confrontational and be like absolute about what we believe in. So we're just like, yeah, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this, and they're just like, dang, what can you do?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah,
it's crazy because for me, I feel like when I was in school, like high school and stuff, I was actually pretty like open about it, I would say. So I'll just, you know, like honestly, anything. Like, oh, like, can you come to this party? Honestly, my mom's not gonna let me go. So I was like, nah, you're not gonna see me there. I'm not gonna lie to you. But like you said, I mean, that's what I used to say with a lot of things. Like, you know, about Saturday, I'm like, oh, I go to church on Saturday. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, my church is like 24 hours.
Yeah,
come after church. Come after church.
Yeah. So I'm like, my church is 24
longer
hours.
than you think.
Friday night, they're like, you worship the whole time. Like, no. But I'm not. You're not gonna be.
Not available during that time.
I did that, and in Costa Rica, it's like 90% of people are Catholic, and so they go to church, it's 1 hour, and then they're out. So my friends would say, okay, so let's go to a game, or let's go play ball or whatever. And I said, no, I got church inside. I said, okay, so let's do it after. Yeah. So I'm like, no, I go to church like from 9 o'clock in the morning, and I don't get out until like 5 o'clock. It says, dude, the audacity! And they were like, whoa. So yeah, I got the same reaction, and until I got tired, I was like, okay, so listen, Saturdays is out. Over time, they got like, dude, don't worry about him.
Yeah, that's exactly what they would be like, oh yeah, Keenan, Saturday, he's not coming.
Just no,
yeah. But I mean, even just going further, I remember, like, kind of like what you guys were saying, like, and it's probably like you said, how you explain it, I guess. Because I remember someone like Marcus, I just told him, I guess he this is how he told me the story. I used to always say I don't eat pork.
Oh,
he's like, I haven't. He's like, I had no idea why you don't eat pork. I just know you didn't know anything about meat because my mom was vegetarian, so we barely had meat in the house. Like you have chicken, that was pretty much it. but like there was pretty much no meat, no. So when I went to in school, I'll see meat. I'm like, I'm not sure if this is pork.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of meat this is. And so I always ask Marcus. I'm like, hey Marcus, like what is this? It'll be like a hamburger. He'd be like, that's pork, man. I'm like, oh man. So for like my whole freshman year, I'll be like, all right, man, I guess you can have it. So he needed his burger and my burger. And then one time it was like getting close to the end of the year, right? I don't know what it was about. Like I think I knew it this time. I don't know, something about. So I was like, hey Marcus, I was like, what's this? But I knew it this time it wasn't pork. He was like, yeah, that's some pork right there. And I was like, no, it's not. So I go, should I eat it? He's like, but it was actually pork. So he was like, oh. So he actually thought I was allergic to pork. So soon I ate it. He literally looked at me. The way he looked at me, he looked really scared, and then he just started like hanging away, right? So I'm eating. He was like, I'm telling you, that is pork. I ate the whole thing, right? So then like it was a little bit later. He was like actually like avoiding me. So I was like, yo, Marcus, like, why are you avoiding me? Like, what's going on? And he's like, honestly, I had to see how you can react for that whole day. I didn't know if your head was gonna blow off. I didn't know. He said, I thought I had something to do with God, but he's like, you never really explained it to me. He said, I didn't know what was about to happen. So he was like, so I actually explained it. I was like, we don't eat it, health message, blah, blah, blah. But it's funny, like you said, it's like, we just hang around sometimes, we just say things. And I was like, people have no idea what we're doing, why we're doing things. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I'm like you said, like most times we just say things like, oh yeah, I don't do this, I just don't eat pork. Yeah. And like, what's your reason for doing it? And like you said, when you get older, you should have a reason why you do and don't do
exactly,
things,
yeah.
You know? And be able to explain it to somebody that, okay, that makes sense, I can see why, whatever. Yeah. So I was just interesting, that's why I brought it up.
I'll say too, like the difference from being a kid till now is like my relationship was different as a kid. I feel like I had a lot of knowledge as a kid because I was raised in like Christian education and everything. So I had a lot of knowledge, but in terms of relationship, it was like nil. And it wasn't till college that I actually like started a relationship. And I'm like, oh, like this is the God that I've been serving my life. Like it's pretty awesome. Like, so now when I have these type of conversations, it goes about completely different. So another thing that Tashina was saying, she was like, oh, I didn't know, like, you know, like the message was like so beautiful. Like I didn't know about like God's love and stuff. It was just like, I just know that you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you couldn't do that. She's like, why didn't you tell me these things? I'm like, well, at that time, that's not how I viewed it. Like I viewed it as I couldn't, like that was my viewpoint. But as I got older, as I like really got to know God, then it became something different. Like it was his love for me and like my reciprocal of like, man, like he loves me so much, he does so much for me. Like I have to have this love back. It's just natural. It comes from me. So now when I tell other people, it's more of I say the things that I can do. I say like the joy and peace that comes with this. Like, I don't know how I could not have him in my life. You know, like that's the conversation I can have with people because that's where I am now. And that's what I think is really important for like trying to tell the younger generation and try to foster that from younger, you know, because it's like the natural way of things. When you're younger, you just see all the negatives. But if you can get people at a younger age to build that relationship, to start to see not just what you can't do, but like, who is this God, then they might have a different conversation with their friends. They may have a different experience than I did.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think environment plays a big role in how is it that we see things. Because in my peer group, we experience the same thing. So it can be that we all had the same experience and be in totally different countries. So to me, it has to do a lot with how is it that the environment was set up. And if that is what we saw, it has to be some, in my mind. Kids focus on something that you can probably gauge or you can probably have them focus on. And they're not gonna lie. So if at that time we saw that, it's because probably unconsciously the people that were older thought that would be something good for us to focus on, and how we internalize that was probably not the way that I intended. So the good thing is that we're adults now and we can just change the meaning that we have in those things.
Yeah.
So
Changes a lot after that. All right, so anything else you guys want to bring up church related or like biblical related when it comes to confrontation? Because I'm gonna change gears for a second.
I will say
Mm-hmm.
a scripture.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so Joshua 1:9. This is my command: be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So this is just for us, like moving forward. Like even if we are like in confrontation, be strong and courageous about it. Pray about it. You
Yeah.
know, like ask God that it doesn't turn into a negative confrontation, but a positive one,
Right.
and that it goes into His favor.
I like that. Let me tell you, God be listening to those little prayers. I used to think like, oh, like that's not a prayer thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh no, you can say anything in prayer, and let me tell you, it gets heard, and a lot of times it gets answered. Okay, so we're gonna go into 3 subcategories here. I'm not gonna spend too long in each one of them because I don't want to make this too long. But let's go in like relationship, right? So we touched on it briefly before. I think we can say confrontation is pretty unavoidable in relationship. Let's talk about what good and bad confrontation looks like in a relationship.
Good and bad.
Right. So like bad, like all right, what are some like red flags if you're seeing when it comes to confrontation and I guess green flags, like someone dating, right? What are the things you want to look for and see like, oh, okay, good, like that. Other ones like, we either got to address that or like maybe that's something I avoid.
Yeah, so I guess if it's confrontation and it's in my relationship, right? Like we're talking about not like friendship, but like
No,
friendship.
actual
Okay,
relationship,
sure.
actual
Okay, so
relationship.
yeah, basically it'll be certain things, communication, right? So how, if you're bringing up a conversation to me, how's your communication? Or if I'm bringing a conversation to you, obviously my communication has to be good, but also like how are you receiving the confrontation or certain things, whatever it could be. It's kind of motive for confrontations, right?
Okay.
Are you bringing something because on a selfish reason, I would put it that way, or maybe just a reason that's not really for a solution. You're kind of just bringing up confrontation. What else would that be? I would say also not realizing that your partner has your best interest at heart. Well, that's what should be the case.
Yeah,
Right? So that's
yeah.
the first step. But the assumption after that is that your partner has your best interest at heart. So if he's saying something to you or she's saying something to you, it's probably because they want you to obviously grow and be successful.
Right.
Usually with the relationship, but a lot of times you got to fix yourself first. And also your partner is the one that usually sees more of you than anybody else.
That's true.
Right? So they're going to see things that other people might not see. And they're going to probably want to address that out. So, yeah, I'll say so.
Okay. Like that.
I'll say that, and I didn't know this until probably a couple of years, and I'm married for 17 years, right?
Give us the
So-
wisdom.
No. So my wife used to say that she used to test me and try to like make me upset just to see how is it that I will react.
Oh boy.
Now I am not a type of like confrontational, but you don't know what type of person it is that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So understanding how is it that they work on the stress, or understanding whether what would make them upset, and if they do get upset, what would they do? Then you'd rather find out now than finding out when you have a ring on.
Sure. Yeah.
So I would say that was one of the things that I didn't know that I was getting tested on. was
Clearly
really put into
passed.
hey.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be one of the things that I would say is important.
I like that. Guys, in the comments too, let us know what you guys think are green flags, red flags when it comes to confrontation and relationships. Kiki, you got any?
I guess when you tell someone or tell your partner how you feel about something, how it's handled. So like if the first thing they do is try to punish you, I guess, by like not talking back, like talking to or ignoring you or anything like that, those are obviously red flags.
Right.
Communication is not there. What if like, and it could be something small, like maybe someone likes for the dishes to be flipped down when they put in the dishwasher instead of up, and then like you tell them that or something, and then or having the toilet paper roll, people always argue about that, the toilet paper roll facing one way and you having it flipped the other way. But it's like even in those small things, like how are those conversations handled? Like when I tell you, hey, like I don't like it this way, you're just like, well, I like it this way, too bad, so sad, that's it, and they like leave. Like that's it, like end of conversation. Like, you know, like, but there are couples who do talk to each
For
other
sure,
like that.
for sure. Wow.
So it's like, so it's just like like even in the small things, like those are things you should really focus on, because if they're doing it in those small things, imagine like the bigger arguments, like financial things or whatever the case may be.
Wow.
So
I think that's true. That's a good point. And I was going to bring up the feeling thing, right? So one thing when it comes to good confrontation, and we've said this before on the walk, is like using, especially with your significant other, using I feel statements.
Yeah.
So like if something's wrong, don't be like, oh, this is what you did, or like whatever, or like I think, no, say like the feeling that you have, like I felt this when you did this, right? Because then the response from the other person, if they are, you know, a good person you should be dating, if the feeling that you have is negative, they should care that that feeling is negative, right? So like, even if their intention wasn't what happened, we're gonna have a good start to this conversation, because I'm like, oh, I didn't know that you felt that way, or I didn't realize you felt that way, or like, I'm sorry you felt that, like that wasn't the intention. Now we can start from there, right? But a lot of times it gets like an accusation, the other person's then on the defensive, and now we're starting off like
Off kilter.
Exactly. So seeing how someone responds to I feel statements, if they're just like, they don't care, like, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, like, you're wrong, you know, that might be a red flag. And then what was I gonna say was how kind of like what we were saying, like how someone responds when they get upset, right? Because you can be upset and respond two different ways. You can let that upsetness spill out, or like you can have the sense of mind to realize that you're upset, which is okay. Like anger is a feeling, we can't get rid of it. It happens to us, but you might need to realize it and like, okay, I can't have this conversation now. Need to step away. That's okay. Like I think some people like they want to address things like that in the moment, and like they see like you stepping away, like, no, we gotta talk about this now. No, sometimes it's needed that stepping away, like get that level head, get out of that triggered state, and then you can have a better conversation. Now, let's say you have a non-confrontational person and another non-confrontational person. Do you think it's possible that they can make their relationship work without confrontation, since neither of them are?
Well, I would say that at some point in time, both have to like get to understand that if they care about the person, that there is things that need to be said, because never has procrastination ever yielded something positive.
That's true.
And to the point that Kiki was talking about, I'm from Costa Rica, Spanish, and Esther is from Grenada. So we have totally different cultural views of things. And when you mix those two, you have to communicate a lot with the person, because the way in which I'm accustomed doing things is totally different from yours. And if I am not willing to understand that it is possible that people just get accustomed doing something different, then I am not going to, I can probably have a very short fuse and it could just be a trigger. But if I understand that, you know, there is going to be differences, and I need to, number one, voice what those things are whenever, just like you said, and have a format when we're communicating to make sure that those things are vented, then I don't think you should have a problem. The problem arises when those things are
Kept.
and you procrastinate,
Suppressed,
and you know, it, over time you can take but so much, and then you do something really, really small, and then the house has no roof.
It's true. It's true. Definitely been guilty of that one. I don't know if Simone is watching this, but I remember when I was younger, me and Simone used to be really close, and she would tell me like, oh, like I've never seen you angry. I want to like see you angry. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you don't. I don't get angry for a reason. Like no one needs to see that. And one day she saw it, and yeah, she's on the don't make Andre angry train now. She's like, oh, I understand. Yeah, so I get that. It's not good to bottle up. The reason why that I'm like that is because a lot of times I do internalize, suppress. So then if it gets out, it's not that good. Yep. So yeah, try to let off a little steam at a time now. All right, let me ask this question too. We're we're gonna skip that. Sorry, guys. I know people hate when I do that, but we're gonna skip that. Let's go to friends, right? I want to ask, well, not ask, but like let's discuss one thing. Shane said something to me before, and it stuck with me because I'm like, wow, that's probably really true. He was like, all right, let's in church, right? There's different like characters, right? And especially let's thinking like the older crowd. There's certain characters. Every church has them. They got, and he was talking like they probably got this way from the things that we see and even in our friend group now, little quirks, and no one addresses it. And then as they got older, it got really cemented and it kind of got out of control. But at that point, like that's who that person is now. So what do you guys think? Like, even if it doesn't really have, because again, if it don't have nothing to do with me, Darlene's coming to, I'm like, that's not a great character trait, but I mean, that's your character, But do we have a responsibility to like see these quirks about people and address them before it gets to this point where they're out of control? Now there's some miserable old person that, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's how that person is, What do you think?
Oh, me? Oh, personally, I think, honestly, I realized, even from the conversation in general, I was like, and you're right, I was like, I am very confrontational. No, I thought about that, but like not,
Yeah.
because I was like, I am the type of person that like, literally speaking, I will say what other people are thinking. Not to the person. Like I will, so I'm like, honestly, let's just say you have a quirk, like someone has a quirk, right? I'm like, for the most part, we all see that you have this quirk. So how I might say it.
I'm a Spanish guy from Costa Rica. What is a cork outside of something to like cap a bottle?
No,
It's like,
Like the cork. It was like
quirk. So like something, I'm trying to give a example.
Like it's like something that is like, say, like we would consider abnormal, I guess, or different.
But it's something
Then, like,
that someone does like consistently.
Yeah.
So let's
Like,
say
based on
and I'm
the
guessing it's
standard.
negative.
a lot of times it is, but it's not always. Some people have like ditziness, right? That's like a quirk that someone might have. Like they're kind of like, like that type of thing. Like they're just super, ditzy. They're kind of like silly.
Yes.
That might be like a quirk that someone has. Like they're just really silly about things, But it could be a lot of times it is negative.
Okay.
But it doesn't have to be necessarily.
I mean, I would see it. I mean, yeah, I would say things like examples. I guess I could think of is like maybe you have a friend that's blunt.
Yes, there
Right?
you go. There you go.
And so for us, we're like, that's that person, whoever that person
right.
is. That's Jay. Like he's blunt. We all know that. But then it's like he's kind of saying in certain ways, it's like you kind of let it go, even though in most other cases you can't talk like that to other people and get away with it. We just kind of accept it because we know how he is. And then like he kind of like how you were saying is that sometimes when they get older, they tend to be that mean old blunt person that people don't like.
Exactly.
And it's like, you know what? Maybe if somebody was telling him some things, like especially his friends, it's close to someone to say, hey, like, I kind of know that's how you are, but like, I don't think you should kind of talk like that to people, even. So it's kind of something like that, where it's like, should you address things that you see about people, I guess, especially your friends, I guess, or should you just kind of let those go to the wayside?
So I'll say this: at work, we have a say, and it says, "Your family likes you the way you are, but we don't. We want you to be better." And that's a lot of times. And sad to say, a lot of times our family don't want to like change or intervene into changing some aspects.
We don't want to do that work
of ourselves that is negative, or it's not yet negative, but over time it could become. And you really don't have a crystal ball to see what it would be. But chances are it's not going to be good. But we may not want to do that. But if we change the person from environment, chances are the person who in the environment that they are, they have a vested interest to have them improve their communication skills, improve in whatever other aspects. Sometimes some churches are that way, and some churches just don't have that particular thing. They end up being that miserable. So should we address those things? I believe we do. At the same time, we need to learn the skills necessary to become effective over time at doing it with more finesse.
So let's discuss that part then, just a little bit, because we kind of know with relationships how we can go about addressing things. You know, you kind of come more with like your feelings and stuff like that. But how do you address things with more like friendship or like a little bit more distance? You know, not someone that's super close to you, because that person might necessarily care about your feelings. So like, what are some things that you can do, some guidelines you can go by when trying to address those things? Because I'll say that could be a stumbling block for a lot of people. A lot of people they're like, oh, I would do it, but I just don't know what to say. You know, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I would say for me, like, you're right, I'm different. Like, I do say things in a joking way, right? So I get a lot of times, I do get it across, I guess. Like, so for example, let's say someone is blunt. You know, I'm like, ouch, that actually really hurt me, blank. I'm like, you know, good thing, you know, I'm not, you know, depressed or something, because I might want to kill myself, you know? So that's how I say things, like, I'll talk like that, and then sometimes, like, that person, I'm like, oh, like, what do you mean? Why do you say that? I'm like, oh, you know, sometimes you could be really blunt.
Yeah.
I'm like, especially if it's not your friends, I'm like, it could probably rub people the wrong way, you know, stuff like that. But, and I would say it's hard sometimes because, like, when we say friends or family, right? Most times you're, like, raised up with those people.
Yeah.
And we tend to, they usually had those issues way before. Like, they could be adult now. They had those issues back when they were 5.
Right.
So it could be, like, even if you take, let's say, blown away, it could be something like you know, sometimes you have, it's not always, I'm just making something up. So a friend might have, like, this nervous tick. So she always needs somebody to hold and be next to. If you're a friend growing up, like, from 5, you're like, oh, yeah, that's what we do. I always hold her. She's 30 years old, and she still can't be separated from people. She's like, I need to hold people or someone to be scared and I get nervous. Well, at some point, you don't realize, like, oh, you know, that's not good, and you have to break that. Like, you can't be an adult and you still have this nervous thing that's going on. And that's one of those things where you're like, hey, like, I guess it's hard because you don't realize that switch of, like, oh, you can't keep holding on to me, and you know, I'm not gonna always be here. We have different lives, and like you said, having those like tools to say, you know what, yeah, that what's going on there, that's not normal, and that's something that we got to figure out why it's happening, what's the reason happening. Maybe therapy can help, but even addressing it, sometimes we either don't, or like you said, we kind of just let it go. You're 6 years old and they can't be on themselves. Yep. And stuff like that. So, yeah.
It's tough, but I think a willingness to be uncomfortable helps. And anyone knows me, that's not my specialty. But because if you go into that situation with at least not attacking, I think that's a big thing, right? So if you go not attacking and you're just like, all right, we're just gonna be uncomfortable for a second because I'm gonna say this, you're probably not gonna like it. It's gonna be awkward a little bit, whatever. But like, let's do this. Then you could probably make some headway, or you can at least plant a seed. Your intentions are good. You're not coming attacking, so they're not gonna immediately get defensive and stuff. You might be able to make some headway, and you're willing to just say whatever awkward thing comes to mind, you know? I think that goes a longer way than we may think.
So one of the things that I've been taught is something called bun meet bun.
Okay, let's hear this one. All right.
So, of course, number one, before you get to that, you have to like earn the right to tell this person
Okay.
X, Y, and Z. So, you know, you have to have a certain amount of relationship or deposit, so to speak, to be able to make a withdrawal. So that'll be number one. Number two is that, you know, you have some privacy. Speaking with the person.
Yeah.
It can't happen just anywhere.
Yeah.
Then you tell them the things that they're really good at, the things that you believe are exceptional and X, Y, and Z, and then you get into the meat of things. Then you tell them, well, at the same time, there is things that you need to work on, and bam, 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 and then you finish up with telling them, but I believe that you have the, you know, really great potential of doing X, Y, and Z, and I believe that. So it wasn't totally an entire negative conversation.
Yeah.
And if you inject those elements of making sure that you had, you know, vested into the person and they have some type of a relationship, you tell them to take them to somewhere where it's private and have the entire situation a positive experience, then you go over the meet bun. Because sometimes we just like, listen, man, I gotta tell you something. We just go meet.
Yeah.
And so it's a person, so, you know, those things help. So that's why I was saying that, you know, there is different skills that we can learn, and over time, if we start practicing them, we can improve the way in which we communicate with people to make it easier for them to be able to grasp the things. And there is nothing to say that when we have that one conversation is going to change, but they will see that we had good intentions, and if they sit down and internalize and say, you know what, let me see if what you were saying is true. And if they're mature enough and they are ready at that time to make the change, that could be just one of the grains of sand that help them move in that direction.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of times I think we put a little bit too much on ourselves. We're like, oh, we need to say this, and then they need to change. But no, you might be just person 1, and they're not going to change until person 50. But if we were all doing our job as like, to be able to confront people about things, then people will probably get there quicker. But it takes years for it to get to person 50 because some of us want to not confront the other ones, So that's another thing too, being willing to have that conversation and knowing they may not take it right away, but I did this the best way possible, and I did it.
Yes.
Now it's there. They can't unhear what I said now.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's so funny that you bring that up. I remember doing these like modules like at my old job. And and it's so, look, y'all, and like when you said that, I was like, where am I at my old job? Like, what's going on? Because like when you're a manager, like they make you do these things so you can talk to your employees, like so where there's no confrontation. So I'm just like, what is going on here? So I'm like, okay, well, but the crazy thing is I never thought about applying that to my relationships. I just always thought of it as a work aspect, so there's no issues at work.
To work with people.
Yeah, but it's just people in general, and I'm just like, okay.
Can learn something. Danielle says in the comments, it's all in the presentation, gently but firm, showing that you care about their feelings, yet displaying how serious you are with what you're saying. I agree. That's very true. Gently but firmly. Yeah. You can do both. It's a good massage. All right, so let's wrap things up. Let's give kind of final thoughts on this topic on confrontation. Whatever it is you want to leave the audience with. I'll go first while you guys think. So with this topic, I think we've talked. We've got a pretty good understanding in different aspects and everything, but I'll just say this: it's really important to be able to confront yourself. If you're able to do that, then you'll be better at confronting others. You'll know you'll know how to treat yourself, and you can treat others with that same kindness. Like you wouldn't treat yourself with anger and yelling, and you wouldn't do that to yourself. You would reflect. You'd be like, okay, you'll actually think about things and more have a conversation with yourself. So that's probably what you want to do with others. To kind of what I just said previous to this, and really speaking to myself when I say this, being okay with just saying what you have to say, and even if the person doesn't change, even if you can foresee that they're not going to respond well or take it well or listen to you, just still do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And you would want someone to do that for you if you were in their position. You would want someone to still press through. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Well, I'll say this, and I guess it kind of would be piggybacking off what you're saying. So basically, in terms of confrontation, right? If you have a struggle doing it, the concept too, I guess, is one of the easiest things to think in your head is you know what? Sometimes you're met with something, and you go, what can I say? Because I don't want to say the truth. That's what you should say, the truth. All right? And I've always told people, the truth always makes sense, right? A lot of times when you're trying to circumvent and try to go around it and be how do I say something else? It comes off way worse usually. And you're you know what? Might as well just say the truth. So it's most of the time it's you know what? When you're in your head thinking about something, it's yeah, I should probably just say the truth. This is what it is. And obviously, try to be gentle, try to be, certain things with it. But never, I guess, try to strive away from that.
That makes sense. I like that.
One of the things that have helped me over the years is instead of taking the focus of myself in regards to how is it that I feel, and really focusing on the other person. And in searching what is it that I should say, what I learned is what is it that I should ask. And sometimes in asking, not sometimes, questions are a better tool in helping people think than statements. So I'll say learn to communicate, learn to ask better questions.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like
Good
that
one.
one. Dang, you stole mine. No, I'm kidding. So I think I'm just going to speak in perspective of myself, and then if someone takes it, then great. What I think especially because this really did help me, because like as I told you, I really suck at confrontation. It's just when someone comes to me with anything, like he said, I'm going to try to look at it from the other person's perspective more than like my own emotion, because it could have taken them a lot to even try to come and talk, because like how we're all talking about like us being the actors, like it's taking us a lot just to talk to someone. So imagine for that person who's coming to talk to me, it's taken a lot for them to do it too. So being, I guess, in that mindset, like reminding myself like, hey, like I'm scared to do this, so they're probably scared to do this too. And then kind of like going on with that. So it's like at a level instead of being, I guess, defensive right away, if that's what happens.
Okay.
Cool.
So I think we've had a great conversation so far. Let's go to our final segment, our Talk to the Walk segment, and let's answer one of the questions that has been submitted. So this person asks, do you go to church because you want to or because it's what you're used to?
All right, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
So I can say when I left I think as a Christian, I think the big factor is when you leave your parents' home, what you do.
Yeah.
Because obviously as children, like we have to go to church. We have no choice.
Right.
So I know for me, I did not go to church. I had the option to, I didn't. And like during that time, it was like, okay, I'm going to try to go every now and again, but it was because I was used to it. Like on Saturdays, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm always in church. So let me try to go every, once and again, like every now and again. And then, but for me going every now and again, I got my relationship back, like realizing, and then now I go because I want to. And like, I'm happy with that because I know I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for my parents, but now I'm doing it for me. And it's better. Like my relationship with God is better.
It's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments too. What do you, the answer to this question? You guys?
Yeah. Let me see. I would say, if I had to think about it, I would probably say it's probably more from tradition, honestly. Like I'm like, that's just what I do. Like, that's just what I do. But I don't know. It's like that's what I would say, because like I feel like for me, I'm the type of person where it's like, let's say I'm going on vacation. In my head, I'm like, I feel like I should be at church. That's how my brain just thinks. I'm like, I should be at church, even if I don't go. I'm like, oh, I should be at church. So I don't know. I feel like that's just like how I think about it. I'm just like, oh yeah, like I should be at church. I don't know.
I'll go. So,
Just kidding. No, I would say that just like Kiki, when I left my parents' house, I was like, "This is it. Peace out. That's it. I don't have to go. I'm not going." But I've lived a life like that. I've lived a life without goals and objectives, and you wake up a couple of years later, and like, holy guacamole, everything is out of array.
Yeah.
So it brings, in my life, it brings a sense of order. It brings a sense of, it's just order. So everything that we do is out of habit. So it's not just going to church. Every single thing that we engage in on a weekly, on a daily basis, over time is out of habit. And whether it's something that you're trying to implement that is new, you're probably not good at it or not consistent with it because it's not a habit yet. So it's kind of crazy. Because sometimes people believe that you just go to church out of habit. At some point in time it was, but in order for you to continue that, sometimes you stop and then you decide to continue because it's something that yields you a result. It could be your relationship with God. It could be a better relationship with your spouse. It could be just making sure that you are centered as a person. It could be just be single. So it yields something, and every single habit that you have that's positive yields a particular result.
Right. So I definitely had the same experience where I wouldn't go to church as much when I was at school, and when I was at school away from my parents. I was like, oh man, I can sleep in. I love to sleep in. I love to sleep in.
To sleep on a Saturday is different.
Man, it is, man. You just
different.
you don't woke up early all
It's the devil
week.
putting you to sleep.
Double portion. It's a double portion, right?
So I had that same experience, and then I came to the realization that I had the better relationship, and then it was more of a choice that I wanted to. But I will say I still only come because I want to. So even now, they may not see me every Saturday. If I don't want to come, if I want to rest at home, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So it's really gotten to the point now where I can say it's not because I'm used to it. It's because if I come here, it's like, all right, I decided I'm gonna come here today, because I won't come otherwise. Now, another thing you have to realize, you can't really answer this question until you've been tested. So until you've had the actual choice, right? Just like you can't really say like, oh, I'm a faithful person if you've never been in the situation where you could cheat, like, then I don't know, like, are you a cheater or not? You don't know. You just think, Same thing with church. Like, do you go to church because you used to once? Oh, I go because I want to. Well, have you even had the option? No.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know that yet. You haven't had that temptation yet. But I think when you do, then you kind of realize. Now, I'll say people go to church for very different reasons. And that's something that also changed. So if you go because you have to, well, there's your reason right there. You go because you have to. If you go because it's just like out of habit or you're used to it, that could be part of it. But I think you can go because you're used to it. That's what you do. But also, it's something that you receive from going there, and also what you want to give, not only to receive. So one thing that changed my perspective about church and coming to church was, I can't remember the pastor that said this, but in his sermon he was like, people keep going to church to receive things, and that's why they keep getting disappointed, because they didn't get what they were looking for. I didn't get that good sermon, the singing wasn't good enough. But he's like, if you're going to church to actually give your praise, doesn't matter what song is singing, like they're singing about God, you love God, you want to give praise, you're going to give praise. Doesn't matter if it sounds good or bad, doesn't matter if the sermon was amazing or not, you came to give something, so that's what you're going to do. And when you think about it like that, then that also changes your motivation, your perspective about it, That's what I'll say.
Cool. I like that.
So let's wrap things up. It's been great having you guys on here. Hopefully you'll come back. I mean, Keenan's a repeat, and I feel like Ron will come back. You're a wild card.
It seemed like you had a good time and everything.
I know. I would say so, right? So let me just go over a couple announcements, and then we'll pray this thing out. So things coming up, July 27th at 8:30, we are going to have a sports and game night here at Mount Zion. If you are in the area, definitely want to come out. We had a trial run like 2 weeks ago, and I think it was a great. I wasn't there, unfortunately.
I just want to say that
but
I was there. Where were you?
I
was there.
I didn't make it to that one.
3 of us were there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the 3 of them said it was awesome. So you don't want to miss the official first one, which is going to be on July 27th. Okay. The next thing is what we've been talking about for the past couple months. It's going to be our weekend, August 23rd to the 24th. It's going to be a weekend on sexuality and the church. We're going to have special presenters coming and talking about this. I know a lot of you guys have submitted questions even to talk to the walk about this topic, and it's a big topic. So we're going to have a whole, Friday and Saturday about just this. So if you're in the area, definitely come to gain the answers to your questions. That's it. Let's pray. Thank you guys for watching. Definitely like, subscribe, share, donate if you feel so impressed. That'd be awesome. But yeah, let's pray this thing out. Father in heaven, we're thankful that you've brought us all here together. We're thankful for this discussion that we've had. We know that it's not easy to confront and to talk about things that we may observe, even if it's something that affects us or it doesn't affect us. Being selfless and seeing someone going in a wary direction and having it in ourselves to bring that to their attention, even when we know it may not go well. That's not an easy thing, but it is the thing that you would do. So we want to be more like you in that regard. So we're asking that you'll help us to put aside our selfishness, put aside the awkwardness we may feel, put aside what we may think may happen, and to just simply be more like you, to show your love, to try to steer people in the right direction. God gives the wisdom and the discernment to do it in the right ways, the ways that people will be likely more receptive. And for us to be okay if they're not too receptive, to trust that you will do the work behind the scenes, that your Holy Spirit will do the work and water that seed. And eventually that person may come to a realization that they may need to change. And we could have been an integral part of that. That would be awesome. God, we're asking that you will help us, that we will be willing to confront ourselves, to really look deep within ourselves, to see the things that we may need to change. What are the things that people have confronted us about that we may have written off or disregarded? We ask that you will bring those things to our mind as we reflect on it, and show us the ways that we can improve. God, we're asking that you will give us a great rest of this night and a great weekend. We're thanking you for all the things that you've done. We're asking that you will be with us in our day-to-day lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 All right, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next walk.
Whoa. Before you go, make sure you like us on all social media platforms at The Walk Live, and find us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Our journey doesn't have to end here. Join us on the next walk.